So now that we have alignments created in Civil 3D, we're able to start to utilize these alignments and look at them. Um, you have tools that allow you to view them, to edit them, and to do other tools associated with alignments, because alignments will be very important to the whole design process. In fact, it's kind of the first process step that we get into. So one of the things we want to do first is I'm going to come here and click on this alignment, and you'll notice that the alignment highlights. But also what's telling is we come up here and we see that we have a new tab up here, and this is called a context sensitive editing tab. And this tab is associated with this alignment. It gives me the name information, and it also shows me it's an alignment. And all of these tools in this tab are associated with that alignment as well, or can affect it. But I can still use my other commands. If I go over here to home, notice he still stays there. And if I hit the escape key, notice he disappears. So what we want to do is go ahead and back into that. We bring that up. We can see we can do things like add labels. We've got general tools. This inquiry tool is real nice. We're going to take a look at that. Alignment props, geometry editor. These are some areas we're going to look at. And then later on we can get into things like surfaces and corridors and all of that. So let's take a look at the inquiry tool first. Inquiry. And what it does is it automatically shows up the alignment name that I selected. If I had selected the wrong one or I want to do a different one, I can just go to this guy and grab the one I want and make sure that you have that showing up, whichever township you're looking at. Then I'm going to go to here and click, like, say, for instance, coordinate point. What I'm going to do is just click a point like right there. What that did, it just populated that information. Really, anywhere I click, notice I can get my offset, I get my station, X, Y, Z, or X and Y information, coordinate point information. So it's very, very nicely laid out, and so that box is pretty cool. When we take a look at the other tools within alignments, we have the alignment properties. Come here, we can look at the properties, or we can edit alignment styles. I'm going to go to the alignment props, and in this box we have different areas: information, station control, masking. So you have the ability to change things and or look at things. So for instance, this is showing me my name. I can change my description, change the object type for the ones there. I can also edit those, so I can look at what's showing up, what's not, color schemes, all of that associated with that. Station control. If you had created a station incorrectly, like for instance, I tell you very often I will forget to put that at the proper station. So I can come back in here and fix it by clicking in here, selecting what I want it to be, and rerunning it. It'll change it. I can mask. Masking is kind of interesting. What this allows me to do is kind of just get a piece that I'm not really interested in currently out of the way. So I can create a mask by saying, let's say I want to go from, let's say, that point to that point. That mask is now there. If I apply that mask, you'll notice that the mask is gone when I escape out. It's like it's just not there. It still is, definitely, but I just don't need to see it if I'm not operating on it. So I'm going to go back in there, and I'm going to delete that mask. So I'm going to go to mask, and I can just toggle it off, or I can click on it and delete it out. So we can do that anytime. So we can change other things in here. One of the things eventually, if you're using Civil 3D a major way, you might be looking at design criteria. And they have design speed settings, and you can use criteria-based design where you're looking at using AASHTO manual or whatever kind of thing you would be working on. So there's a lot of things that can be forced through this box. So we're going to go ahead and OK that. And let's take a look at the geometry editor. And this allows me to go in and edit geometry features within my alignment. For instance, adding or deleting PIs, adding or deleting curves, and they've got all kinds of curve types of operations within here. They've got spirals, which we'll be looking at later, and all kinds of good stuff. We can also look at each individual entity and within this, and these are called sub-entities. So for instance, this is created with a line, an arc, and a line, and so that's a sub-entity, sub-entity, and sub-entity within this. So if I go to the sub-entity selection, I can select my sub-entity, brings this up. Not sure, because I got my constraints on, it looks like, from my AASHTO manual. Maybe I better turn that off. I didn't realize I turned that on, so let me go back to that. I'm going to clear that. Alignment props. I didn't really want to use the criteria base. It didn't like that. So what I'm going to do is go here again to the geometry editor, sub-entity. I'm going to select this sub-entity, and notice over here it allows me to kind of play with that subentity. So for instance, I notice I've got a radius of 190.99 because it's set to a degree of curve of 30 degrees. But what I'm going to do is say, well, I really want to put that at a 200 foot. I'm going to put that at a 200 foot radius, and you may notice it just changed that just ever so slightly here, changed my degree of curve, and it recalculated everything. So again, I'm going to run that back to what it was initially in our 30 degrees, and it updates everything. So it'll fix it when we get out of there. The other thing you can do is this guy, which opens up the panorama. This is more of a spreadsheet kind of look to it, and allows you to kind of do the same thing. Notice degree of curve, arc, chord length, radius, and some of the parameters are constrained. If I constrain that, then I can actually generate and deal with lengths. So I can get in there and fix some of these issues if I need to. So there's fine tuning, is that's what I want to use this for, as a fine tuning kind of operation, or just searching for stuff. So when we're done, we're just going to escape out of there, and this should be back to what it was. So hopefully that we didn't mess with that in too much. So that's some of the alignment issues. And the other thing you can generate or deal with is your labeling. Remember, it's kind of a separate subset, even though it's connected to the alignment. So as the alignment would tend to move, this stuff will update for you. And I can also click on it, and they have tools associated with it. So I can edit the label text, I can flip labels, I can do all kinds of interesting stuff in here. And labels are getting better in Civil 3D. They took a while. First they were a little difficult, but they're getting better to work with. And notice that's a context-sensitive editing tab strictly for labels. And notice this will be a separate one actually. So when I get into that, so that's kind of what we're looking at there. Okay, so we're going to now create some offsets, and we're going to go back to that first sheet that we had, and you'll notice first sheet and the second sheet, it shows you our geometry, and in the second sheet it shows me widths, and we might envision this being pavement width lanes. So I've got like a 30-foot coming in, a 30-foot width off of the Township 35 here, and the 247 is at a 40-foot pavement width. Right. So what I'm going to do is offset this. Now there's several methods you can use, and one is to actually go to your alignments here, and you can actually create offset alignment here based on a current alignment setting. The downside to this is what you'll get is another alignment, and a lot of times if I'm just creating, let's say, a right-of-way or a edge of pavement, I don't want that to actually be in alignment. And I can simply explode it and kind of destroy its connectivity, but there's easier ways to handle that. But if you were dealing with a ditch that is going to be paralleling that, you may actually want that to have its own alignment. So that may come into play when you're doing grading operations, which may be very important. So what we're going to do is just use this simple AutoCAD offset command, and you can just type in O, or you can grab it right here if it's available. And what I'm going to do is just tell it I want to offset this by 15 feet for the Township 35. So 15 feet, select my object, offset it, select my object, and show it the side. And I'm going to do the same thing for State Route 247. Go into offset. Again, this one is a 40-foot offset, so total, so this is going to be 20. So I'm going to go ahead and select, offset, select, and offset. Escape. So what we have here now are offset objects, but these objects are not alignments. If you click on those and list them, you will see what they actually are polylines. They're lightweight polylines. And they have been put on a certain layer. They go on whatever I think the current layer was. So it could be cognizant of what you're setting layers up to, or move it later. If you didn't want it to be a polyline, you can explode it. If you're okay with it being a polyline, you can just leave it as a polyline. So what I've done here now, I'm going to trim this up in this area, and then I'm going to add curb return. So there's a 25-foot curb return to the north and a 25-foot curb return to the south. So I'm going to do two operations here. I'm going to do an AutoCAD trim. So I'm just going to type in T and hit enter. It takes me into the trim command. And well, should TR. Okay, they changed that. So I'm going to go in and select cutting edges, so just hit enter to select all as cutting edges, and I'm going to grab that one and select that one and that one and that one, and I can hit enter to get out of there. So trimmed them up, We're going to fillet these guys together. Okay, so I'm going to go into the fillet command by typing in F, hitting enter, and I'm going to check my radius, R for radius, and my radius value is 25. So again, select my first object, second object, there's my fillet, go back into it. I could have done a multiple fillet, which I forget about all the time. And I think the other thing that's done when we filleted these, it's joined them together as one object. So not only did we include the fillet, we also joined. Okay, so there's my two edges of pavements. So that's a good way of doing offsets. And again, you can do offsets other methods, but I like this method. It works very well. Um, Again, the only downside, I may have to move the properties of this. I may not want it on that layer, so I could match properties to something else or whatever. So we'll have that. So we're going to set up another point section. Now we're going to create some more points. I'm going to establish the offset points along this. And on that second sheet, you see we've got a PC point and a PT point, and then we have a PC and a PT of this curve, and end of so these are all going to be edge of pavements. So we're going to go ahead and open up the point groups, and notice we have, remember, all points and the control point group. We're going to create a new point group, and we're going to call this edge of pavement or just pavement. And instead of using a station style, let's see, we'll just pick one out of random. We could just use the basic one, I suppose. And I'm going to tell it to do a point number only. I'm good with that. Well, let's tell you what. Let's just go ahead and put the description on this one. And in the inquiry builder, what we're going to include is for all descriptions matching EP. So we're going to put an EP in for edge of pavement. So we're going to do that. And if you apply that, you'll notice probably in the point list nothing should occur because we don't have any points currently in there with that designation. So I'm going to go ahead and OK that. And I'm going to go into points, and we're going to create points. We're going to do this what we call manually. I guess before we do that, let's check one more thing. Let's go to our OSNAP settings, and I want to set two OSNAP settings. We're going to set the endpoint OSNAP, and I believe we'll just use the endpoint OSNAP. I'm going to turn off everything else, so I'm just using that. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and go into my points now. So we're going to say points miscellaneous. We're going to do a manual creation, but I want to set up a few things over here. One of those things is going to be the point creation. What I'm going to do this time, because everything is going to have the same description, what I'm going to do is leave my prompt for elevations off. Prompt for descriptions, instead of manual, we're going to say automatic, and down here we're going to say EP. So what that will do then is it'll match the point group that we created over here, pavement, which has nothing in it at the current time. So I can collapse this, and I can now come over here, click the first point. What's my point number? That's 12. And notice it comes in with EP. Go to the next one, click, and this is 11. And then we come in with 22, 20, 14, 13, 19, 17, 'Yep, and the last one will be 10. So hit escape or enter. Notice you got your points in. They're labeled for you. It shows me that this needs to be updated. So update it. Those points are now in there. If we look at the point listing on that, we'll notice that's what we've got. If we look at our point group properties, put pavement to the top, and we're good here. The only thing with what we've got going on here is we don't have, I thought we had a blank in there. but we do have control. So let's get a blank point group set up. Remember what we're going to do here. We're going to call this blank. Set the point symbol to none. Set the labeling to none. And include, very important with blank, if you're going to create it, use it to an include all points. And again, because blank is currently created, it's on top. Now we see that one. So if we, again, manage the point groups, bring blank down one level, apply that, we should see the pavement ones. There's our pavement. If we want to look at the control, we can promote that up above blank and pavement down to the bottom. Remember, sometimes what will happen is when that occurs, these will still exist, and you have to force a regen RE, and that will regen the situation and take that out for you, so you're all good to go. Okay, so there's our points, and so now we've got that. So let's take a look at some labeling issues, and that'll kind of probably finish us off for this lab, and then you'll be able to work through it, submit it, and we'll be able to move on. There's some really cool labeling tools, but labeling is a little tricky. I'm going to show you some of the nuances of labeling, and then as we get into this stuff, we'll be working with labeling a little bit more. What I'm going to do is go over here to the Annotate tab, and Annotate will allow me then to tell it what to annotate. So I'm going to go over here, Add Labels, and all different things. You've got surfaces and figures and parcels, and the only object that we really have that's new here is an alignment. So you notice we're going to go to an alignment. We can add all kinds of different alignment labels. I'm going to show you a couple of them. One is this point of intersection, and so watch when I select this alignment, it puts in that little symbol for me, which is kind of nice. So that's associated with that. Okay, escape out of there. Go here. What we're going to do is do some labeling again. I can add a station, and there's what they call station offset fixed at a fixed point, or you can have this one at a station offset label. So what I'm going to do is do that one, because select your alignment. Now you literally can use this glyph and drag it, and then you just kind of drag it where you want to put it in. Click it, and then click the offset location. Or you could have a point that you want to actually be right on. The actual symbol right here is the location that I selected, and then this is, look at the information it's giving me. It's giving me the alignment name, the station, the offset value, right or left, and then a northing and easting value. And this can be moved. You can move two things. If I move this is the symbol grip. Okay. If I move this is the point grip. So what I'm doing now, watch what's happening is I'm floating this around. Can you see how that's actually updating? So for instance, if I wanted to go to the center point of this guy, okay, that is showing me the information associated with the center point of this here. Or maybe we would want to do the same thing with, let's say, the center of that. But what's really nice about that is that information is right there. And again, as that thing would tend to move, all of this instantaneously updates. Same thing as if your alignment itself moved, this information would also update and change. So these things are all linked together parametrically. One drives the other, and it's really, really nice the way that works. And you don't have to do a lot of thinking or as much thinking as you used to back in the day, because it's taking a lot of that for you. So that's one kind of neat label. And again, once you get him in there, you can kind of do all kinds of things to him. And he'll behave based on certain settings. And editing this stuff is a little tough. I'm going to show you a little bit about that here in a sec. So what we're going to do is add some labels. And I'm going to do what's called add a single segment. So I'm going to come here, and if I click on that, notice it gives me the bearing and distance information. There's my curve information, and then there's again my bearing and distance information. Escape out of there. So that's kind of nice. Notice also this label masks on top of other things, so there is a masking that you can turn on or off with your labels. This one's set up pretty nice. Notice that you have a bearing. The only thing I don't like, it's to 2 decimal places, so that can be edited. Same thing with this one. Now this one is a little bit different story. This one's not working too well. When we click on this label though, notice there's two. This is like a slider label, so it allows you to slide it wherever you want it. Like if you wanted it in the midpoint of the arc as opposed to that. And then again, this is the grip symbol that will take the pull it out like a multi-leader. And this is essentially what it is in AutoCAD. So once I pull it out, I can still use that grip and manipulate it. So it's kind of cool the way that works. So they work in tandem. But let's look at this. And this is in kind of some squirrely units, units I don't like. And I wanted to show you a little bit about how we could edit that. It's not the simplest thing in the world. But notice we have 3 decimal places. We don't know whether it's feet or meters. That's a decimal degree readout. And then this is also a decimal, but again, we don't know what it is. So we're going to click on this. We're going to right click. We're going to go do label props. Nah, that's not what I wanted to let it. I always go the wrong one. We want to go to the label style. And the label style is set to what's called delta over length and radius. Now you can change them in here, but you're going to get what's already created. So if you want to actually edit it, we're going to go here. And this box is really important to understand when you get into labeling. It takes a while. There's a lot of different information in here, information, general, layout, drag state. So layout's where most of the action happens. And what you have is components here, and this actually has 4 components if you open this up. A tag, a distance, a delta, and a radius. And this is your arc length, distance, that's your radius, and that's your delta. So let's start out with distance. Now what we're looking at is features associated with it, and the majority of what's going on is right here. This is the important one. So I'm going to click on that and open this guy up. And what this is doing, you can see that the L, let me see if I can move some of this around. I can't. There's an L here. That's a generic L and an equals sign. So this right here is the important guy. When I click on this, notice it brings in the information associated with that. So what we're going to do is change that. And now if you change this, you can grab all kinds of stuff. We don't want to change that. We want length. And precision, we're going to change that to 2 decimal places. Okay, and we're going to promote that by hitting that, and that replaces that. And I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to put a foot mark, and I'm going to go ahead and OK that, and I'm going to apply that. And it actually is fixing it here on this graphic. You can kind of zoom up. That graphic is nice because it'll show you what's going on there if you get it kind of where you want to see it. Okay, so now I want to go to the delta angle. So again, click here. I'm going to click in this guy, and notice it's set to decimal degrees format. Now that's just ridiculous. No one uses that in our business. So what we're going to do is set it to this, and go to the nearest second. I think that's good. Yeah, that was already there. And make sure you promote it. It always changes that. Okay, that. Apply that. Notice that it's not taking effect here, but it will when we get out of here. And then the last thing I want to do is change the radius value. So I'm going to go to radius, click on the radius, open that up. Let's see, that didn't take. Oh, there we go. Pick on that. And what I want is to go to 2 decimal places, 2 decimal places, promote it. Always people forget to promote. What you need to do is change that. And then I'm going to come back over here and put my foot mark symbol at the back. OK that, apply it, changed it, OK it, and OK it again, and it should fix it down here. And notice there it is. And that style has been permanently corrected now. So if we use it again in this drawing, it'll be OK. But it will not be OK in subsequent drawings. So what will happen is unless we change this or create a style within the Civil 3D template, it's going to come back to get us every time. So a company that's really using this software really needs to sit down and spend some time dealing with label styles. And I can tell you this, label styles, these guys, and your object styles, these guys are really some of the critical pieces of Civil 3D. Once you get flowing with it, creating stuff is easy. Labeling takes a little bit more time. So that's our first lab, zoom extents. What we should have done today is something that should look like this. So what you want to do is save this drawing and send it along to me so I can review it and grade it, and we'll be ready to step into the next lab. The next lab should be up and running pretty quick, so hopefully this is helping. If you do have questions, make sure you contact me. I can help you through this stuff, and hopefully you'll be learning a lot along the way as we get into these Civil 3D labs. So I'll see you guys next time.